The Biography of a Grizzly. Part 1. The Cubhood of Wob. Chapter 1. He was born over a score of years ago, away up in the wildest part of the Wild West, on the head of the Little Piney, above where the Platte River is now. His mother was just an ordinary silvertip, living the quiet life that all bears prefer, minding her own business and doing her duty by her family, asking no favors of anyone except to be left alone. It was July before she took her remarkable family down the Little Piney to the Graybull and showed them what strawberries were and where to find them. Notwithstanding their mother's deep conviction, the cubs were not remarkably big or bright, yet they were a remarkable family, for there was 4 of them, and it was not often a grizzly mother can boast more than 2. The woolly-coated little critters were having a fine time, reveling in the lonely mountain summer and the abundance of good things. Their mother turned over each log and flat stone they came to, and the moment it was lifted they all rushed under it like a lot of little pigs to lick up the ants and grubs that were hidden. It never once occurred to them that Mammy's strength might fail sometime, and let that great rock drop just as they got under, nor would anyone have thought so that might have chanced to see that huge arm and that shoulder sliding under that great yellow robe she wore. No, that arm would never fail. The little ones were quite right, so they hustled and tumbled one over another at each fresh log in their haste to be first, and squealing little squeals and growling little growls, as if each was a pig, or a pup, or a kitten all rolled into one. They were well acquainted with the common little brown ants that harbor under logs in the uplands, but now they came for the first time on one of the hills of the great fat wood ant, and they all crowded around to lick up those that ran out. But they soon found they were licking up more cactus prickles and sand than ants, till their mother said in Grizzly, "Let me show you how." She knocked off the top of the hill and laid her great big paw flat upon it for a few moments, and as the angry ants swarmed onto it, she licked them up with one lick, and got a good mouthful that was rich and crunchy, without a single grain of sand or a cactus stinger in it. The cubs soon learned. Each put both his little brown paws on, so that there was a ring of paws all around the ant hill, and they there sat, like children playing hands, and each licking first the right and then the left paw, or one cuffing his brother's ears for licking a paw that was not his own, until the ant hill was cleared out and they were ready for a change. Ants are sour food and made the bears thirsty, so the old one led down to the river. After they had drunk as much as they wanted and dabbled with their paws, they walked down the bank to a pool, where the old one's keen eye caught sight of a number of buffalo fish basking on the bottom. The water was very low, mere pebbly rapids between those deep holes, so Mammy said to the little ones, "Now y'all sit on that bank and learn something new." First she went to the lower end of the pool and stirred up a cloud of mud which hung in the still water, and sent a long tail floating like a curtain over the rapids just below. Then she went quietly round by land and sprang into the upper end of the pool with all the noise she could. The fish were crowded to that end, but this sudden panic sent them all off into a panic, and they dashed blindly into the mud cloud. Out of 50 fish there was always a good chance of some being fools, and half a dozen of these dashed through the darkened water into the current, and before they knew it, they were struggling over the shallows. The old grizzly jerked them out to the bank, and the little ones rushed noisily over to these funny short snakes that could not get away, and gobbled and gorged till their little bellies looked like balloons. They had eaten so much now, and the sun was so hot, and they were all quite sleepy, so the mother bear led them to a quiet little nook, and as soon as she laid down, though they were puffing with heat, they all snuggled around her and went to sleep, with their little brown paws curled in and their little black nose tucked into their wool as though they were on a very cold day. After an hour or two, they began to yawn, stretch themselves, except for little Fuzz, the smallest. She poked out her sharp nose for a moment, and then snuggled back in between her mother's great arms, for she was a gentle, petted little thing. The largest, the one afterward known as Wob, scrambled over on his back and began to worry a root that stuck up, grumbling to himself as he chewed it, and snapped it with his paw for not staying where it wanted it to be. Presently Mooney the Mischief began tugging at Frizzle's ears and got his well-own boxed. They clenched for a tussle, then locked into a tight little grizzly yeller ball, and they sprawled over and over in the grass, and before they knew it, down a bank and away out of sight towards the river. Almost immediately there was an outcry of yells for help from the little wrestlers. There could be no mistaking the real terror in their voices. Some dreadful danger was threatening. Up jumped the gentle mother, changed into a perfect demon, and over the bank in time to see a huge range bull make a deadly charge at what he doubtless took for a yellow dog. In a moment all would have been over for Frizzle, for he had missed his footing on the bank, but there was a thumping of heavy feet, a roar that startled even the great bull, and like a huge, bounding ball of yellow fur, the mother grizzly was upon him. Him, the monarch of the herd, the master of all these plains, what had he to fear? He bellowed his deep war cry and charged to pin the old one to the bank, but as he bent to tear her with his shining horns, she dealt him a stunning blow, and before he could recover, she was on his shoulders, racking the flesh from his ribs with a sweep and a sweep from her terrific claws. The bull roared with rage and plunged and reared, dragging Mother Grizzly with him, and then, as he hurled heavily off the slope, she let go to save herself, and the bull rolled down into the river. This was a lucky thing for him, for the grizzly did not want to follow him there, so he waded out on the other side, bellowing with fury and pain, slunk off to join the herd to which he belonged. End of chapter 1.